Alrighty then. How's it going? Last day before teacher workshop, so hopefully that's good. What I want to do today is continue our study on Icarus, Daedalus, talk about if there's any moral or lesson we can learn from the story. How does it relate to what's going on today, 2022? So let's start reading. Some of the words in here, I don't know why they use them. They're so rare. I'm not really going to talk about them. Maybe really quickly, but they're not words really worth knowing because they're used so rarely. But let's get into a bit of this article here. So we have myths and legends. Icarus flies too close to the sun. There we go. Poor Icarus. Luckily, he is clothed today. And I don't know if you noticed in yesterday's video, there was little parts that were exposed, I guess, on some of the statues in one of the videos we watched. Luckily, he's got clothes on today. And you can see that he's falling. We know how this ends. He got a little bit too close to the sun, didn't listen to his dad, tried to become more godlike. So here's the caption. Icarus, the son of Daedalus from Greek mythology, tries to escape from Crete using wings made of wax and feathers. After flying too near the sun, his wings melt and he falls to his death at sea. Meanwhile, Daedalus flies to safety, unaware of his son's fate. Bottom. Is there another? Okay, here we go. The bottom. This is Daedalus helping Icarus put on wings. There you go. Luckily, they also have clothes on, which is good. That doesn't always happen in Greek mythology. All right. They mentioned Crete. So before we get to the story, let's talk about where Crete is. Crete. So there's Greece. Greek mythology comes from Greece. And then that island right there is Crete. And then up here, Ukraine. So we've been talking a lot about Ukraine and talking a lot about Poland. It's where a lot of Ukrainian refugees are going, Moldova, and then there's Crete. All right, let's get to the article here. Here is the myth of Icarus. His father Daedalus was a skilled inventor who created wings for him and his son Icarus so they could escape King Minos of Crete. Overcome by his newly acquired freedom, Icarus flies too close to the sun, resulting in his tragic end. Excuse me. Among all those mortals who grew so wise they learned the secrets of the gods, none were more cunning than Daedalus. So in Greek mythology, maybe even today, we talked a little bit about it yesterday, there's always that warning. Don't mess with nature. Don't try to become a god. There's only so much that humans should know or that humans should do. And we talked about yesterday with gene manipulation. Like, should you choose the gender of your child? Should you be able to choose if your child has blue eyes? Or are we messing with nature a little bit too much? The Greeks thought flying for humans was impossible. Daedalus was tempting that. He's like, oh, let's try to become godlike. Even though he told his son, hey, don't get too close to the sun. Different sun, S-O-N-S-U-N. Don't get too close to the sun. He did. You all will be driving soon, most of you, in the next couple of years. My daughter just got her license a couple days ago. So, I'm worried about that. I feel, hey, be careful. Don't go too fast. You could go back to this myth. It's like, listen to your parents, kind of things like that. So there are some real life examples that people often look at Greek mythology, point to. Some of these things are still relevant. So I don't know. If my daughter's doing fine though, but I worry about some of you driving. And I know some of you, one of you, I think this year, by the end of the year, a few of you can get your permits. That's scary. Scary. All right, here we go. Right in the bigger paragraph here. Well, everything's highlighted, but it's this one right. It's this one right here. He once built for King Minos of Crete a wonderful labyrinth of winding ways so cunningly tangled up and twisted around that once inside, you could never find your way out again without a magic clue. But the king's favor veered with the wind. One day, he had his master architect imprisoned in a tower. So at some point, the king is like, "Nah, we don't. You're a little bit too crazy for me. You're a little bit too dangerous." It doesn't say it in this article, but you remember, he was like trying to harness the wind. He created a sail. So I think people were like, we're gonna get in trouble with the gods. You got to go, buddy. You got to go. And so he went. Daedalus. So they put him in a tower. King Minos put him in a tower. Daedalus managed to escape from his cell, but seemed impossible to leave the island, since every ship that came or went was well guarded by order of the king. At length, watching the seagulls in the air, the only creatures that were sure of liberty, he thought of a plan for himself and his young son Icarus, who was captive with him. Little by little, he gathered a store of feathers, great and small. He fastened these together with thread, molded them in with wax, and so fashioned two great wings like those of a bird. When they were done, Daedalus fitted them to his own shoulders. And after one or two efforts, he found that by waving his arms, he could winnow the air and cleave it as a swimmer does. All right, I wouldn't worry. Cleave means cut, but you will hear cleave every so often. But winnow, just think of winnow the air and cleave it. Just think of like what a swimmer does in the water. That's what he was doing. He held himself aloft, wavered this way and that with the wind, and at last, like a great fledgling, he learned to fly. Fledgling is like a baby bird, baby bird. Without delay, he fell to work on a pair of wings for the boy, Icarus. He taught him carefully how to use them, bidding him beware of rash adventures among the stars. If somebody is being rash, it's like they're being careless. So remember, said the father, never fly very low or very high, for the fogs about the earth would weigh you down. But the blaze of the sun will surely melt your feathers apart if you go too near. So he's got to worry about the water below. They might dampen his wings and he'll fall that way. Or if he gets too high, stay in the middle. Don't get too cocky. Don't be too humble. Find that happy medium. You might also hear this word. It was used in one of the videos yesterday. Hubris. Hubris. It actually starts with an H, but it means being too boastful, being too prideful. And a lot of times, if someone is too stuck on themselves, then that could be their downfall. That's what hubris is. When you get to high school, you might read some Shakespeare or you might read some more Greek or Roman mythology. Hubris is talked about quite a bit. Being too prideful, being too confident in yourself, and that could lead to your downfall. That could lead to something bad happening. The day came. Is that where we are? No. For Icarus, these cautions went in one ear and out the other. Who could remember to be careful when he was to fly for the first time? Are birds careful? Not they. And not an idea remained in the boy's head, but the one joy of escape. So, not listen to his dad. The day came, and the fair wind that was to set them free. The father bird put on his wings, and while the light urged them to be gone, he waited to see that all was well with Icarus. For the two could not fly hand in hand. Up they rose, the boy after his father. The hateful ground of Crete sank beneath them, and the country folk, who caught a glimpse of them when they were high above the treetops, took it for a vision of the gods. Apollo, perhaps, with Cupid after him. At first, there was terror in the joy. The wide vacancy of the air dazed them. A glance downward made their brains reel. But when a great wind filled their wings and Icarus felt himself sustained like a halcyon bird in the hollow of a wave, like a child uplifted by his mother, he forgot everything in the world but joy. He forgot Crete and the other islands that he had passed over. He saw but vaguely that winged thing in the distance before him. That was his father, Daedalus. He longed for one draught of flight to quench his thirst of his captivity. He stretched out his arms to the sky and made towards the highest heavens. Not listening to his father. That almost made me think of beer right there. Draft. That's actually pronounced draft. I think I pronounced that the wrong way the first time, but one draft of flight to quench his thirst. I think sometimes you'll hear of a liquid called the draft, and the only thing I can think of is beer. Alas for him, warmer and warmer grew the air. Those arms that seemed to uphold him relaxed. His wings wavered, drooped. He fluttered his young hands vainly. So if you're doing something vainly, it's not working. If you're doing something in vain, it doesn't work. He was falling. And in that terror, he remembered. The heat of the sun had melted the wax from his wings. The feathers were falling one by one like snowflakes. And there was none to help. He felt like a leaf tossed down the wind, down, down, with one cry that overtook Daedalus far away. When he returned and sought high and low for the poor boy, just like looking, he saw nothing but the bird-like feathers afloat on the water, and he knew that Icarus was drowned. The nearest island he named Icaria in memory of the child. But he, in heavy grief, went to the temple of Apollo in Sicily, and there hung up his wings as an offering. Never did he attempt to fly. So it seems like the dad learned his lesson too. Don't try to become like a god. Know your role, know your place as a human. Don't be too humble. Don't fall in the water, but don't be too cocky. Don't try to go too close to the sun. All right. Hope this helped.